would you be interested in trying the Ouija board? I'm an atheist at this point. This stuff cannot be real. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Ouija board starts spelling stuff out about me in real time that I had never shared with anybody else. Started threatening me with disclosing secrets that I had from my past. And you could tangibly feel the presence of evil in the closet. It actually asked me to pledge, and then it spelled out blood, and then it spelled out sacrifice. And I turned around real quick, and I saw a spiritual face. It had facial features, eyes, nose, mouth, but it was deformed. I would cry myself to sleep all the time just because I was so depressed and empty. If God is real, then I'll live the rest of my life trying to honor him. If God is not real, if I don't experience him, then I'm just going to take my own life. God, if you are real, speak to me. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard the audible voice of the Lord. It was like a lightning thunder. I see this giant mountain, the most beautiful mountain that you've ever seen, with green moss, different colors that don't exist in the natural. And then I look up right above it. It says holy, written in giant gold letters. My name is Austin Hoy, and this is my testimony. I grew up here in Mesa, Arizona, all the way on the east side, almost to Apache Junction. One of 3 kids. I had a couple step brothers and step sisters along the way as well. My dad and my mother separated when I was about 2.5 years old. So I grew up in a really chaotic household. My stepfather and my mother got married probably about a couple years after my father and my mom got divorced. And immediately he brought chaos into the house. He was an addict. He struggled with alcohol. He was a severe alcoholic, so he would drink like a 24-pack a day, sometimes like 32 beers in one day. And he was also a methamphetamine user too. And so along with that came lots of chaos. He was extremely abusive, more so, I would say, mentally more than anything. I never felt at peace at home, ever. I always felt like something was wrong. I was always feeling like I was in trouble. I never felt peace as a kid. Same thing with my sister, Karami. She's my full-blooded sister. My mom and my dad had us both, and so we're the only like full-blood siblings. If it wasn't for my dad being in the picture, coming in and kind of taking us every other weekend, I don't know how long I would have made it as a kid. I struggled with severe depression, severe anxiety, severe paranoia too. I was always thinking about like what everybody else was thinking of me. I also really struggled with my weight when I was a kid, so I also used to get made fun of at school. So no matter what I did, I always felt like a lack of peace wherever I went. I remember one day I was like 7 years old, something like that, close to it, 7, 8 years old. I had this crosswalk lady. Everybody kind of gets close to their crosswalk lady. This lady was so sweet. She used to treat us really well. I remember her looking down and saying to me, "You know, Austin, I don't know what it is, but just something just seems off with you." And I remember that was kind of like a moment in my life where I realized like something was like really wrong. And so I would go to school, get bullied. I'd go home, get bullied. My stepdad and my mom were always arguing constantly, like yelling at each other. And so I'd go into my room and I would kind of escape. That would be like my escape. I would go and play video games. And when I was real young, I loved like wrestling and stuff like that. Every 90s kid did back then. And so that was kind of like my escape. I would find my little niche and I would just hide away from everybody else. And I always felt like I was different. I always felt like I could never fully connect with society in general, with people at school. Like I always found like people that were different as well. and people that I can relate to, people that would show kindness to me. And so I was like kind of hanging out with the black sheeps. They would kind of encourage me a little bit. We would have fun. And I just remember just never feeling at home, never feeling at peace. Right around 2.5 years old, this had always been kind of like a memory in the back of my mind where I didn't really know if it was true or not, but I also did at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like a memory that doesn't seem real, but you also know that it's real at the same time. I remembered that when I was 2.5 years old, my mom would drop me off at this babysitter, and then my dad also had a babysitter as well. I got dropped off at one of the babysitters. I can't remember who it was, but I just remember this vision of this babysitter. I knew that something wasn't right, and it was always in the back of my mind growing up and throughout like my teenage years into adulthood. But I just kind of like put it off, like, oh, like I don't even remember it anyways, so like there's no reason to even think about it. Turns out that it actually was a big thing. My mother took my babysitter to court over this ordeal. Apparently my babysitter had me as a 2.5-year-old baby. It's a part of my story of the Lord really delivering me of some dark stuff. So I always felt like that was kind of a contributing factor to why I never felt like I was a part of society. I never felt like I could fit in. I always felt deep, dark, and depressed and alone. And I remember it was like right around 7, 8 years old. I asked my stepdad one day, I said, hey, what about God? Like, is he real? Like, is God real? I always had like this like thing in the back of my mind. I'm like, is God real? And he goes, no, he's actually not. And you shouldn't ask that question anymore. And so that was kind of like a set in stone thing. I never questioned it. Went throughout all my life believing that there wasn't a God, that I was just here by chance, and I had no purpose at all. And right around, I would say 9 years old, my mom got into a lot of arguments, even more so than what she had experienced before. And she was like, I'm done with this guy. She finally gets a divorce. And I'm like, yes, like this is what I've been waiting for. Like life is going to get so much better. We move into a small apartment over in East Mesa. And I was like, life is pretty good. Like with a single mom, I don't have to worry about this guy anymore. It was about a year later that she met another guy. He was a really nice guy, but he was very emotionally and psychologically abusive. He was a step up, obviously, from the previous guy who was extremely abusive and really struggled with addiction, never really felt safe. In this house, like I felt safe, but emotionally he would manipulate and make me feel dumb and make me feel less than. And no matter what I did, no matter what task I was assigned to, I always felt like it was never good enough. I lived that way my entire childhood. If I wasn't good enough with the previous guy, and I also didn't feel safe, but then when we moved into this guy's house, psychologically, I just didn't feel safe, and I never felt like I was good enough either. We went a couple years of kind of enduring this. One day I got into an argument with him just because he like took my Xbox, and that was like my thing. Like, don't take my Xbox from me, because that was my escape from being at school. I would come home, and that was a way for me to connect with my friends, connect with just myself away from everybody. And then he would always just take my stuff, like always. He would take my Xbox away from me for no reason, because I like miss like a spot cleaning the shower or something like that, you know? And so he took it, and I was like, I've had enough with you. And I was like this little 12-year-old, you know, having this argument. And he comes down to it, and he's just like, you know what, you guys, you're just going to be on your own. You guys get out. And so we got kicked out because of that argument that I had. But it had been kind of building with my mom. She had been arguing with him a lot lately. We We moved in with my grandparents for a couple months or so, and to some family friends as well. And I started to get older and more curious with things. I started to really love football. Football was like a really big thing for me growing up. I played Pop Warner. My dad was actually my coach. So that was really cool. That was my new escape. It was no longer just video games. My escape was going and playing football with my friends, going to practice, being violent. And it was a way for me to take out my anger. That was like my escape, and I was really good at it. And after a couple years or so, I ended up getting into high school. I had this long black mop top all the way down to my shoulders. I grew up right around the emo kid age from like 2004 to like 2009. So I was like trying to fit in. I had long black hair. I would dye it actually all the way down to my shoulders and the back of my neck, and started listening to metal. I became a really big metalhead, but I never felt peace. I always felt like something was off. I always felt like I didn't fit in, even with like my closest friends. Like I always felt like I had to earn their approval, had to earn their love. I never felt secure in my relationships ever. And so that kind of led me to trying to find peace in other avenues. And the way that I did that was, I thought that if I became more attractive, if I lost weight, because I was kind of pudgy growing up, if I can just lose weight, if I can just become attractive, then people would accept me a whole lot more, and I would finally find peace. And so I developed an eating disorder. I started throwing my food up, which is pretty rare for men. Oh, maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's different these days. But back then, it was definitely a new thing. You didn't see it too often. I started throwing my food up. And I was very strict on my calorie restriction. I would only eat like 1,200 calories a day. And then I would also work out for like an hour and a half a day. And then I would throw up my food if I felt like I had eaten too much. And I was keeping a secret. Nobody was finding out until like one day my stepmom was like, "Hey, we've been smelling throw up in the bathroom. Do you know anything about that?" And I was like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And they're like, "We have an idea that you might be throwing up your food, so we're here for you." My dad and my stepmom, that side of the family, I was always able to connect a whole lot more with my dad. Like, he was like my biggest hero. My dad had always been my hero. Even before the Lord, my dad got saved about 6 months after me. Before that, we always had like a great relationship. He was like kind of like my escape too, growing up. I loved my dad so much, and I still do. So going back to the bulimia, they started to notice it, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to be monitoring this going forward." But I was like trying to hide. I was always trying to hide and keep it secret, until one day, basically, they had heard, or they had smelt and heard. They heard me throw up in the bathroom. Like, "Hey, we're going to send you to counseling." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to counseling. All right, I'll stop." And so I stopped throwing up, and kind of became more strict on my calorie restriction. That was like my control. I can control what I put into my body. And so no matter what, I was not going to go over that 1,200 calories. And I ended up losing so much weight. I lost 50 pounds in a span of 3 months when I was 15 years old. And it was also simultaneously right around this time that I started going to high school. I was a freshman, started playing football for my high school. So I was starting to naturally lose weight too, just by practicing. So I was practicing, I was restricting my calorie intake. I got down to 138 pounds. I was able to see my rib cage, and I still believed that I was overweight. I still believed that I could lose more weight. And no matter what I did, I could never find peace. And so I switched, because I was like overweight, and no girls were interested in me at all. I remember there was a moment in elementary school. It was April Fool's. And this is an awful awful joke that was played on me. But this girl that I had a crush on, I was like just starting to develop feelings for girls. And I shared with my friend that I had a crush on this girl. And instead of like keeping my confidence, as soon as this girl was near me and my friends, he was like, "Hey, so and so, Austin has a crush on you." She looked at me and like kind of like made this face and then waited till after school when I was walking home by myself, because close to my school, it's only like a 5-minute walk. She goes, "Hey, Austin." And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like totally awestruck because this is like my biggest crush. She goes, "Hey, will you go out with me?" And I didn't even know what to say because I was just so awkward. Like I was literally the most awkward person ever. She goes, "April Fools." And I just remembered that was always just a moment that I would classify as like a defining moment in my life. And so I made it my life's mission to become attractive enough for somebody in the future that they would accept me because of that. And so by losing all this weight, by growing my hair out, by working out and getting fit, that finally I would be accepted by a woman. And I had, and also another thing to throw in there is like I never had a strong relationship with my mother ever. I always felt like because she was choosing these men, that was like her way of offending me in a sense, because she didn't realize what she was doing to us. I actually took offense to it by being in the same household as these men. It was offensive to me. And so naturally I withdrew myself the connection that I had from my mother. And the relationship was always strained. So now I was trying to find comfort in my new girlfriends that I would get. I had never dated anybody up until I was about 15. And then all of a sudden from 15 to basically 18 years old, I had dated probably over 40 teenagers. I would have a different girlfriend like every like month or so. And then I would break up with them. And then I would meet somebody on MySpace or something like that, or at school. And then I would date them, break up after 2 weeks. You know how the high school relationships are. And that was like a way for me to experience acceptance. For some reason, I don't know why, but it made me feel like a sense of acceptance because I was finally able to connect. I actually was wanted by a woman where I never felt that way with my mother. Simultaneously, my sister was really struggling. She's a big part of my testimony. My older sister, she was another person, kind of like my dad. We have the trifecta. It's me, her, and my dad. We've always been so close. And so whenever she's struggling, which was very often, pretty much my whole adult life, she struggled with addiction. She started using methamphetamine when she was about 13 years old and started using heroin, I think, when she was around 17, 18 years old. So she struggled with meth and heroin for a vast majority of my teenage and adult life. She started to really struggle when I was around 17 years old. I was finishing up high school, and she basically got to the point where she would just stop showing up to family events. She would stop answering her phone. She was falling off the face of the map like every couple months. Like you just not hear from her ever until right around 18 years old. I became old enough to where I was able to start doing more things with her. So she would like take me with her to these parties that she would go to where there was drug abuse going on. People were like getting high in the back rooms and like doing all the things that you shouldn't do. I ended up meeting her ex-boyfriend, and he was like the coolest guy ever in the world. I'm not going to say his name, but he was seriously so cool. He was like an ex-baseball player, great athlete. He would also bodybuild too sometimes. And I really looked up to him, and he was like a smooth talker. I kind of like thought of him as like my older brother, almost like a father type figure. And we would hang out all the time. She would take me to parties. I was only like 16 years old, 16, 17 years old. And we would go to parties all the time with like college age students. And he was just somebody that I adored until one day he's like, hey, he looked at my sister and he's like, I think it's time. And I'm like, time for what? And he's like, hey, do you think it'd be okay if you like hit the blunt real quick? And she's like, yeah, why not? And I really thought of it as like a way of me connecting with him and showing him that I was also kind of cool like him. And so I smoked my first blunt when I was like 16 years old. And it was a way for me to escape, to feel something other than the emptiness that I felt. I had so much joy and laughter. The pain was gone, actually. When it would subside, it would come back, of course. But it was for the very first time that I ever felt peace in my life when I smoked weed. So I would start smoking with him on the weekends. I was real young, so I wasn't like doing it all the time. And my friends weren't quite into it yet. And so it was just like me at like my sister's house, and started to really enjoy it. And then finally I got my friends into it, and they're like, oh, this is awesome, because we're all very similar in the sense we all grew up in very broken households. And so now it was everybody's way of escaping. Eventually I started hanging out with drug dealers. My friends became drug dealers, selling weed. And I mean, for the most part, just weed. It wasn't like anything heavy. That was kind of like my lifestyle, and transition into that sort of lifestyle from football. Before, that was like my way of finding peace. And then also being in these relationships, that was my peace. But now I had something even better. And because of that, my grades started to dip. I became less interested in football. It was all about just like getting off of school and going and smoking weed, because that was my way of feeling a sense of peace. And kind of like went through life for the next couple of years doing that over and over again until I graduated. I ended up meeting a friend of mine that I knew from sophomore year, and he introduced me to ecstasy, which was literally like the coolest thing in the world for me, because weed was starting to get a little boring. I was still like having peace from it, but then the depression and the anxiety and all of those things were starting to come back even more, because I would have to smoke more weed, and it just wasn't enough. And then I started doing ecstasy, and that was like about as close to heaven as anybody could possibly get in the natural sense. And so I started doing ecstasy, cocaine on the weekends with him, started hanging out with ravers. I would go to raves with me and my friend, and started connecting with that crowd. And I just felt accepted. Like really for the first time with that crowd, I really felt like they had accepted me, and I didn't have to perform, but I was still being tormented on the inside, like no matter what I did. But at least I felt like a sense of acceptance with them, because we were all just like really broken individuals that were longing for the truth, and drugs were our only escape. And started doing ketamine. It's a cat tranquilizer. I would do that for fun. And simultaneously, I met some people from that group that one day we went over to their house. He was like, hey, I know you came over here to do this, but would you be interested in trying the Ouija board? I was like, oh, well, that stuff's not real. I'm an atheist at this point. Like, I'm maybe an agnostic, but I would probably consider myself to be an atheist at this point. I'm like, there's no way. That's just stuff that's in movies, like Hollywood. It's not real. And they're like, okay, well, why don't you find out? And I'm like, okay, why not? And so we're snorting coke and doing the Ouija board. And I'm like, this stuff is not real. Like, they're lighting a candle, and the board's like kind of like lighting up. And I'm like, this stuff cannot be real. You guys are moving that with your finger. And then I was like, this thing is like this thing just isn't real. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Ouija board starts spelling stuff out about me in real time that I had never shared with anybody else. Started threatening me with disclosing secrets that I had from my past. And I was like, yeah, okay, I believe you, I believe you, I believe you. And then the way that they described it to me is, if you're going to do this, it's going to be slow at first, because you're still developing your faith, the more you believe in the Ouija board, the faster that it will go. But at first, it's just going to go a little slow because you're still kind of easing your way into it, which is very ironic. It's very similar to faith in a sense. So I start doing it and I become hooked immediately. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I've been an atheist my whole life. I never thought that any of this stuff was real. And all of a sudden, I have now tapped into the supernatural, and these spirits, they played it off as spirits, where you're talking to dead people, people that had lived on the earth and had died, and now they're in this like almost like a realm of torment, wandering the earth, both good and bad spirits. And you would be able to connect with them and talk with them and find things out about them. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I would ask it questions, like I would lose my keys because I just lose stuff a lot of times. And I would lose my keys, and I would be like, hey, tell me where my keys are. It would tell me exactly, pinpoint where my keys were in the house. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. But then I started to kind of like become a little afraid. I started feeling really strange one night when we were doing the Ouija board. Like my left arm started to go numb. The left side of my body started to go numb. Like I was losing control of my body. They would always want you to do it in the closet. Hey, would you go and do it in the closet in the dark? It would basically feed off of fear. And you could tangibly feel the presence of evil in the closet. Like when it's at its scariest is when it's in the dark and there's no light. And it would try to get us to do that. It actually asked me one time, believe it or not, this is crazy. It actually asked me to pledge. And I was like, well, what do you mean pledge? And then it spelled out blood. And I said, blood, well, what do you mean? And then it spelled out sacrifice. And I said, well, sacrifice what? And it said, sacrifice a small animal. And I was like, well, we don't really have like too many small animals out here in the desert. Could we use a frog? And it said, immediately it shot to yes. And so I was like, well, what are you going to give me? Like if I do this? It went to a question mark. So it was kind of like implying that I could have what I wanted if I would pledge myself and use a frog as a blood sacrifice. And I know this is crazy, but I never ended up doing this, by the way, because I was like starting to get a little freaked out because it was starting to resemble Hollywood's movies too much. And I didn't have a faith in Jesus yet. And so I was like just running off of fear at this point. But I was so intrigued by it. So I was always going back to it. And I would spend hours upon hours a day talking to this thing with me and my friends. And I remember there was actually another time where some of my older friends that from my childhood, I invited them to go out to the desert because we didn't want to do it in the house, because you can invite like scary spirits into your house, so you don't want to do it in your house. We went out to the desert under this awning. It's way out in Gold Canyon. And my friend started making fun of the board. It's like, oh, you're not real, like calling it basically the B word. And the board took offense to it and pointed at him without touching. And this is the first time I had ever seen this. Without touching the little psych class, pointed at him and shot off the board at him. And every single time we would try to talk to the board again, it would just immediately look right at him and shoot off the board over and over and over again. I was like, this is getting pretty intense. Like, I don't know if we should keep doing this, until one day we did it. And as I'm driving home, I feel like this really strange feeling behind me, like somebody's like watching me. And I was like, I don't think anybody's in my car. And I turned around real quick, and I saw it was like, the only way I know how to describe it is like a spiritual face. It was almost like a translucent brownish kind of blackish color. It had facial features, eyes, nose, mouth, but it was deformed. It almost looked like a scarecrow kind of creature. And it was sitting in my back seat. And then I immediately turned right back up, and I don't have any like faith to like tell it to go. I don't even know that you could do that. I just think that it's an evil spirit. I don't have a relationship with God. And so I went home, and I really struggled with pornography at this time. Like I would watch it like 3 to 5 times a day. And so I was watching pornography, and I looked to the left real quick because I felt that same feeling again, and I saw the same face. He was watching me. And as soon as I made eye contact with this thing, because you can make eye contact with it, it was that real. It was that visible. I looked to the left real quick, made eye contact, and then the face dropped down into the ground and disappeared. And that was probably the last time that I did the Ouija board, because I was just too freaked out. And how this kind of ties into my story is my sister, the one that I told you that was really struggling with meth and heroin, she came home one night. I was living with my mom at the time. This is about a couple months later. I ended up moving in with my mom, and she was really struggling with like benzo addiction and heroin, meth, literally probably anything that you can think of. She probably struggled with it. She came home one night, and she was like extremely high this time, and it was very noticeable outside of just the norm. And I was like, she must have done a lot of drugs, like a lot. And I'd been around people that have done tons of drugs, like being in the rave scene. People do a lot of drugs, but this one was different. She was drooling, just drool was coming down off of her face. Couldn't even like walk. It was wobbling around. Like every time she would try to cook something, she would drop the pan, and then food would splatter all over the ground. And she was just really high. And I'm like, this is crazy. But there was no explanation to it. She didn't give any sort of explanation. She was always very secretive with her private life, especially with drugs. And that night, I'm talking to somebody on the phone. My sister comes out, my younger sister, she's my half sister. She comes out and she's crying. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, my older sister left a suicide note. Right before she came outside to tell me about the note, my older sister had just gotten back from going somewhere. And I was like, well, maybe she just went and took more drugs on top of what she had already taken. And at that point, it would probably kill her if she would have taken any more drugs. So I kind of freaked out a little bit. Basically was saying like, hey, I hate my life, sharing all the reasons why she was doing what she was doing, and that she had taken 28 Xanax bars, full bars, 28 of them the night before. She didn't go anywhere to take more drugs. She was just going to the gas station or something to get cigarettes. But I thought that she had gone to take more drugs. But in this letter, it shared everything that she was struggling with, the reason why she wanted to take her life, and that she had taken 28 bars, and that she wanted to tell us that she loved us. And I was just weeping, called the ambulance. Ambulance came and took her off to the hospital, pumped her stomach. But at this point, it was a little bit too late, because it had already been like 24 hours almost, but she was still that high. And because of that, they're like, we heard about the letter, so we're going to send her to the psych ward for her own protection. They end up sending her to the psych ward, and there's a reason why this all ties in. She goes to the psych ward. My aunt and uncle finally find out that my sister's struggling. They had no idea. They're pretty much one of the only believers in my family at this point. They said, hey, we just didn't know that it was this bad. I know somebody that came to my church last week to share their testimony that I really think that you should talk to. Would you talk to her? And she's like, why not? I got nothing else to do. I'm in the psych ward. I don't have a phone. So they bring this girl, and she shares her testimony with my sister, and is like, hey, like, I was in the same spot as you. Would you come into Teen Challenge? She had gotten 2 extreme DUIs in 2 weeks, with the second DUI being on a suspended license, and also had cocaine on her. Like, her whole life had fallen apart at this point. There was no reason for her to want to live at this point. She's like, hey, just talk to your lawyer. Maybe you can get probated to Teen Challenge, and you won't have to spend any jail time, because She was looking at, I think, up to a year in prison or like 6 months in tent city. I think they were going to give her the option to go between whatever one she wanted to do. Nobody wants to go to tent city, so they probably would have gone to prison. And she's like, you know what? Why not? And she gets probated to this program with no guarantee that she was even going to not go to jail, but just, or she was trying to get probated, but was showing initiative that she was wanting to change to the judge. She goes through this program. After about 2 months in, I go and visit her for the first time. And like I said, I'm doing this Ouija board stuff. I'm doing drugs. My life is slowly falling apart, inch by inch. I see her after 2 months, after not seeing her for a while. My last picture of her was overdosing in my living room, being in a psych ward, to seeing one of the most beautiful people that I'd ever seen in my life. Her eyes were black before with darkness, like she was just so lost. And she went from that to looking 10 years younger. And she was so beautiful, and her eyes gleamed with this, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like it was a light that was, you couldn't see it, but you could see it simultaneously. You could see it in your spirit. You could sense it. And I was being blinded. I was just like, that's not my sister. And I hadn't even said a word to her. And she's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, I don't know, nothing. I was like, how are you? And she's like, I just wanted to let you know that I gave my heart to Jesus a couple weeks ago. And it had taken her about 2 months, apparently, because she thought she was in a cult, and she thought everybody was crazy. And a couple weeks prior, she gave her heart to the Lord. And she's like, just wanted to tell you that God speaks to me, and I speak to him. And I'm just like, what are you even talking about? Because I grew up in an atheist family. We don't have any concept of Christian jargon, or we've really only been to, I had only been to church once or twice as like a little kid, and they just fed us apple juice and graham crackers. They didn't learn anything. I think that was the only experience I ever had. And then the Mormons that I grew up around, I thought that they were super strange. And no hate against Mormons, they're super nice people, but that was my experience. No idea that you could talk to God. And that was such a foreign concept to me. I'm like, what does he say to you? Oh, that he loves me. And I can't even remember the full conversation, just because I was so captivated by the way that she looked. She was just so much younger. She looked like she was like 30 something. She was only like 21 at the time, I think. And she looked 21, maybe even younger. It's just like, wow, this is so crazy. And she said that the Lord spoke to her about me. He said, I was like, what do you mean he spoke to you about me? First of all, I can hardly believe what's like happening. But now you're saying that he's talking to you about me? Well, what does he say? And she said that the Lord told her that I was going to be a mighty man of God one day, that I'm going to walk with him. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm an atheist. I don't even necessarily know what I believe. Maybe agnostic on a good day, I believe in spirits and stuff, but like I don't believe in Jesus or like anything like that. She's like, you'll see. And I told her about my experiences with the Ouija board. She like looked at me like with like crazy eyes. She's like, what are you doing? Like that stuff's scary. She's like, can you mind if I just pray over you? And I'm like, why not? And it's such a weird time for me. I'm like, I am the exact opposite of everything that you're proclaiming. It made me feel so uncomfortable. She prayed for me, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm protected from the evil spirits now. So I can just go back and just like keep doing the Ouija board thing if I want to, and I'll be protected. And at this point, like I just had this nagging thought in the back of my mind whenever I would use drugs and I would drive because I had gotten a DUI, and I was like real paranoid about getting pulled over. I really struggled with paranoia, like really, really, really bad, and anxiety. And I was always thinking I'm going to get pulled over, like constantly. And I actually started my relationship with God in a sense by when I would be driving high, I'd be like, Jesus, if you're real, can you protect me from another DUI? I don't want to go to jail. And that was like really my first kind of prayer life, I guess. And it's just funny how that works. After a couple months of just feeling empty, longing for what my sister had, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. That's all I thought about. And then I'm getting high and I'm driving and I'm talking to this God that I didn't know. I was just like, you know what? In the back of my mind, there's just this thought, I got nothing else going on for me. My life sucks. And I don't even want to live at this point. Like I would cry myself to sleep all the time just because I was so depressed and empty. Then I'm like, you know what? What if I just like went into the men's program and just see what happens? If God is real, then I'll live the rest of my life trying to honor him. Or if God is not real, if I don't experience him, then I'm just going to take my own life, because there's literally no other reason to live at this point, because nothing has worked up until this point. And I always felt the sense of loneliness and longing, but never being able to satisfy it. And so I committed. I was like, all right, after my birthday, I'm going to go in and we're just going to find out and see if this Jesus thing is real, just out of desperation. So I go to the Tucson Men's Center, just saying, if you're going to go to Teen Challenge in Arizona, you should go to the Tucson Center. Maybe one of you Teen Challenge guys will see this. You'll get it. But yeah, went into the program September 29th, 2010. I had a pack of cigarettes. I like pull up to the Teen Challenge and I'm like smoking a cigarette. And I realized I'm going to have to like not smoke anymore. And that was like probably the hardest thing ever to get rid of. Smoking is a real stronghold. Like, wow. And I smoked my last cigarette. They're like, if you want, you can just go outside the gate and smoke your last one. I'm like, all right. And so I still remember my last one. And I go into this program and I'm immediately flooded with just intense anxiety. And I'm looking around and these guys, they're hugging each other and they're listening to Christian music. I used to do this thing where I'd be like, if somebody were to ask me, what kind of music do you listen to? And I would be like, well, anything except for country and Christian music specifically, because I hate it. And ironically, I actually kind of like country now, which is pretty funny as I've gotten older. Everybody's hugging each other. They're laughing. They're smiling. They all have that very similar look to them. They all are filled with the light that I was so attracted to in my sister. And I just kind of hang out, relax a little bit. And then they have this Bible study at night for the new guys that are just coming into the program. And this biker guy pulls up in a big, huge Harley. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, Christians don't ride motorcycles, especially Harleys. And they definitely do not look like that, because this guy had a giant beard. He had leathers with like patches all over. His name was Pastor Brad. I'll never forget him. He shared this Bible study, and I don't even remember what he talked about, but I remember every single thing that he said to me was the most interesting thing I had ever heard in my life. I was like, this is so freaking cool. We got done with the Bible study. I grabbed just a random Bible off the shelf because I didn't even have one. I never opened a Bible and understood it. I mean, I'm sure I probably like opened it at some point, but I never actually comprehended anything. I didn't know how to look up addresses. If you were to ask me, like, hey, can you open up to the book of Matthew? No clue. I had to go to the table of contents. I grabbed a random Bible of an ex-pastor of Teen Challenge. And I was like, I need to search this thing out myself. I grabbed the Bible. I basically ran to the fellowship hall is what it's called, where we would have our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I put down the Bible. Somebody told me to read the book of Romans for my first book, which was like a wild choice. And I was like, well, why not? Because I didn't know what I was reading or where I was supposed to start or even how the book was set up. I opened it to the book of Romans, chapter 1. I looked in my table of contents to find it. And I remember just sitting there at the table, and I said, God, if you are real, speak to me. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, to preface this, I had always never heard anything. It was black darkness my whole life. Empty. For the very first time in my life, I heard the audible voice of the Lord. It was like a lightning thunder. It was weird because like you think of like the light shining down, that's the way that it felt. And he said, I love you. And I believed it. As soon as he said that, he said, I love you. And I just got the sense like I was supposed to follow him. And that was all the evidence that I needed. And I immediately was filled with the Holy Spirit. I believed instantly. I didn't pray a certain prayer. Nobody led me through a prayer. I believed instantaneously. And I felt this euphoric feeling come over my whole body. It was like scales. It was like what Saul to Paul, when that happened, said it was like scales that fell off his eyes. Man, it was like scales that fell off my eyes. The next day, I remember going out and seeing the Tucson skies. I looked up at the skies. The birds were so much more beautiful. The sky was so much more beautiful. It was like bluer than normal. I'm like, there's no way that it was this blue yesterday. But it was. I was just seeing it for the first time. And I remember feeling a sense of peace. And for the very first time, I knew that I had purpose. I had gone my entire life aimless, just directionless, just not knowing what I'm doing, where I'm going, who loves me, longing for this love, just always aimless. The first time, as Christianese as it is, that God gave me a purpose, and that was the greatest feeling in the world, that I knew where I was going, what I was designed for, that he made me for him, to be loved by him. And I just remember just feeling this overwhelming sense of peace. And I laid down on the bench and I looked up at the sky and I just looked at the clouds in the sky. It feels like I was like there. I could still just imagine the whole thing. I'm looking up at the sky, blue skies, a couple white clouds, birds flying around. It's like probably 95 degrees out, 90 degrees. So a nice cool breeze. And I just knew that God loved me. God finding me in the midst of all of this. After that, I finished the program. It took me a couple times to finish, not going to lie. I ended up leaving the first time after 4 months. God called me back. The way that he did that was absolutely hilarious, because my sister went back to Teen Challenge. She got out. She relapsed. It wasn't all smooth sailing for her. She had a very long, drawn out process of getting free from drugs. It wasn't like me where I got delivered instantly. Hers took years. But when she was in the program, it's called restoration, where you go back, you get restored in the Lord. She's like, hey, I know you left Teen Challenge early, but the Lord spoke to me about you. And I was like, here we go again. And she's like, he told me that you're supposed to go back to Teen Challenge to finish the program. I'm like, finish the program? I've been clean and sober for like 6 months now. I'm good. I'm in the church. I do not need to go anywhere. And she's like, no, I don't think that that's the will of the Lord for your life. And I'm like, you know what? I am not going back to Teen Challenge, period. I'm not doing it. But it felt like when she did that, it felt like an arrow to the heart. It felt like when she gave that prophetic word, the arrow penetrated deep down into me. And no matter what I did, no matter what I thought about, I was always thinking about, oh, I need to go back to Teen Challenge. That's the only thing I can hear in my prayer life. I couldn't hear the voice of the Lord anymore. That's all he wanted to talk about. He was very adamant about getting me to go back to Teen Challenge. And there's lots of reason for that. And I was just like, no, I'm good. I'm good, Lord. I'm just going to start ignoring you because I'm tired of you talking to me about Teen Challenge. I don't want to go back to Teen Challenge because it was so restrictive. You have to give everything up, everything, your car, money, finances, everything. And after about 4 months of resisting him, I was just like, I was starting to struggle with pornography again. I was like, this is miserable. This is absolutely the most miserable thing ever. And I'm like, all right, Lord. He said, will you go back to Teen Challenge? Like, will you finish the program for me? And I said, all right. And then I started to cry. I was like listening to like a really sad song. I'm like trying to find the saddest Christian song. I think it was like From East to the West by Casting Crowns or something like that. Back then, I was like really big into Caleb, and I was like weeping. I was like, all right, I'll go back. And something broke on the inside of me for the very first time. I had given my heart to the Lord about 10 months prior, but I hadn't fully given my life to the Lord. I hadn't fully taken my cross up. I had given my life to him, and I loved him deeply, but I hadn't yet surrendered my whole life to him as Lord. And in this moment when I said yes, something just felt like chains had broken off on the inside of me, and I was free to obey and follow Jesus without restriction. And so I was like, all right, I'll go back. And then I end up going back a year to the date that I go into Teen Challenge the first time in September of 2010, and I do my whole program. But right before that, right before I go into Teen Challenge for the second time, the Lord took me and he showed me the New Jerusalem. I think I received the dream because I had given my whole self. I was giving everything up again for the second time, but this time was a little bit more painful because I wasn't using. I had given everything and I didn't ask for anything in return. I appear in this waiting room with glass, see-through glass, all around the edge. The chairs are like back to back against each other in rows. There's hundreds of people in this room. It's me and my stepbrother. And what ends up happening is I started looking around and I see all these people, they're celebrating. And I'm like, well, what are they celebrating? I look down in front of them and they have this packet of information. That's the way that it was described to me in my dream. I know what it is now, and I'll go over it in a few minutes. But once you would receive this packet of information, the person would start celebrating immediately because they knew that they were about to enter into the kingdom of God, the tangible kingdom of God, the New Jerusalem. And it was a celebration. And so they would take this packet, they would walk through this sliding glass door. And I'm like, oh, that's really weird, because when I think of heaven, I always thought of The Simpsons for some reason, because I grew up in the 90s and we would watch The Simpsons all the time. There was these massive metal gates with pointy tips to prevent people from getting in. And there's a big, huge guy with a gray beard at a podium reading to determine whether or not you're getting in. So that was like my idea of heaven, because I'm still relatively new in the faith. I don't know anything really still at this point. And I'm like, that's a little weird, but okay. And all these people are celebrating. They're getting up. They're going through the sliding glass door. And then all of a sudden, it comes down to just me and my stepbrother. Me and my stepbrother are just hanging out. He's sitting down. I'm standing up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I look down and poof, the packet of information appears in my hand. And I start going, yeah, I'm getting into heaven. I start jumping up and down. I'm like screaming. And I'm like, this is literally the coolest thing ever. I'm getting into heaven and I know it. And then I look down and I see my stepbrother and he's like sad, kind of. And then his packet of information appears on his lap. And then immediately, as soon as it lands on his lap, it lights up and engulfs in flames. And it's like on his lap, so he's like kind of trying to juggle it because it's so hot. It's like burning his skin. He's trying to get it off of him, and it's turning into ashes. And the ashes are like burning and falling off and flying up into the air. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, poof, it appears back to normal. And I was like, okay, well, that's a little weird. Let's just go to heaven then. And so we get up. We start walking. I see the sliding glass door, like a transparent or like translucent. I don't know if that's a better word to use. Gold sliding glass door. Go back and forth. Immediately, as soon as I walk out, and you could even close your eyes and imagine this. As soon as you walk out through the sliding glass doors, it immediately veers off to the right. The road turns to the right. And I see the road. That's the very first thing that I notice. When I go through the doors, the gold road that veers off to the right. The road is actually a little bit darker of a goldish color, a darker hue. It's still transparent, almost like a glass, but it's also see-through and it's also tangible in the sense that I can grab it, like touch it and walk on it. And I'm immediately met by hundreds and thousands of people walking on the road. And people are going back and forth towards me, away from me. And for some reason, it's like a camera angle is zoomed in on these two girls that are like probably in their 20s or so. And the way that they looked was like, wow, like the most beautiful human beings that you have ever imagined. But I also had a sense of knowing what they used to look like. They are the most beautiful versions of themselves. Their characteristics didn't change at all. They were just perfected. All people that enter into heaven are beautified to the highest extent. Everybody's perfect in every single way. There's no deformities. There's no imperfections. There's no blindness or sickness or anger. Everything is 100% perfect in every regard. Every facial feature, every tooth is perfectly aligned. Nobody's missing teeth in heaven. They have perfect teeth. Everybody is perfect in every single way. That's the best way to describe it. They looked good. That's like the best way to describe it. They looked good and perfect. And if you were to take, say, somebody with like deformities here on earth, place them in heaven, they would become the most beautiful person on earth. If you were to transition them back down to the earth, they would become the most beautiful person that you could ever think of. And what's really awesome about it is that they don't change. They just become beautified. And I remember they were like holding each other like this around each other's necks. And they were looking at each other, and it was zoomed in from behind, and I could see their eyes make eye contact, and they had perfection, like joy perfected. They were in perfect joy and peace, and they were laughing and smiling with each other, and they were skipping on the road together. And I was like, this is so cool. And I look over to the right, and I see my dad standing all the way down at the end next to this almost like a mall type of directory. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. I start walking towards the directory, and I said, ha, I told you that the rapture was coming soon, because I've always been kind of obsessed with the end times. And especially back then when I was first a believer, like I loved the end times. And I was like, ha, I told you the rapture was coming soon. And I start walking towards him, and the thing that he's standing next to is the literal map of heaven. It's like a giant mall directory. It's like 13 feet tall. It's like kind of like the way that I would describe it for all you like ex-Harry Potter lovers, or maybe current, I don't know. But you know how the pictures on the wall, they kind of like move and the faces react. They're real pictures with moving creatures in them. The map is moving. It's in real time. It's the map of heaven, and at the very top is a giant mountain. And I also want you to remember too, I'm not a believer that has studied the Bible significantly at this point, because I've only been a believer for about 10 months now. I've probably read a lot of the Bible, but the book of Revelation, almost zero at this point, because it was just too confusing for me. So I couldn't even like dream this up out of my own imagination. I see this giant mountain, the most beautiful mountain that you've ever seen, with green moss, different colors that don't exist in the natural. Like if I were to look at it right now in my unresurrected form, I wouldn't be able to see the colors. But when you get to heaven, you are resurrected, or you have a resurrected body, depending where you are in the timeline. There's more to it with that. But you have resurrected senses. So you can see colors that you wouldn't be able to see. You can smell things that you couldn't smell. You could experience all different kinds of pleasures that were not previously available to you because you're in your resurrected form. And so I was like, wow, that is such a cool mountain. And then I look up right above it. It says, holy, written in giant gold letters. There's even like a indentation and stuff like that. It was really cool. And it's funny because the Lord was speaking to me and showing me stuff the way that I would want to be shown, and the way that it would make sense to me. And then all of a sudden I hear a narrator. He said, holy is the only word that describes the Lord in fullness. I'm describing what he's describing. Holy is the only word that is able to fully encapsulate the essence of the Lord. And I knew in that moment that holy, he is holy. Like, it's a perfect word to describe him. And down the center of the mountain, there's a giant river flowing down the center. And it would flow all the way down the center, and then it would veer off to the right. Like if you're on top of the mountain, you're walking down the mountain, you follow the river, and then it veers off to the right. And right at the very base, right before it turns right, that's where the map is, where I'm standing. And then I start to realize, I'm like, the road that I was just walking on is also the river of life. Simultaneously, I remember sticking my hand in the river and cupping the water, and I remember it was the most attractive and most delicious looking water that you've ever seen in your life. So clear, and it was the most delicious looking water. That's the best way to describe it. It's like the kind of water that you just want to drink immediately as soon as you see it. And I remember cupping the water, but I also had that realization that the road and the river were one, and you can stick your hands through the road into the river of life and grab water. And from the main river that would come down the mountain would branch off 6 different rivers. The main river supplying each individual river. And then right above each river, there was like a little city. And they looked like little miniature Disney castles. Like, I know it sounds weird, but like they looked like little miniature Disney castles, like bluish color, these beautiful blue colors. And you could see birds flying around them. So there's birds in heaven, just saying. And there were 6 in total. And then underneath each city was a gate and it's like a little sign holder. And in the sign holder was written names in Aramaic, in which I could not read in the dream. I couldn't read Aramaic for some reason. And so there's 6 rivers flowing from the top of the mountain, the river of life, which then curved into where the map is. And then it would go down a little bit further and then hang a left. And then that's where the gate was that had the sliding glass door. And I just remember feeling like I didn't need to drink water. I didn't need to eat food. I didn't need the sun. I also heard that from the top of the mountain, there shone holy, and he supplied all of the sunlight, all of the food. He, in essence, was telling me that there was no need to eat, there was no need to drink, and there was no need to sleep, and there was no need for sun, because the Lord God supplied all of these things. I just knew that the Lord loved me. Like, I knew that the Lord loved me. I had read it a million times, but it was in this moment when I experienced all of these things that I knew that the Lord truly loved me, and that I wasn't just another person on the assembly line with the stamp of approval on my forehead. Like, he actually showed me that he was preparing a place for me, that he truly loved me, and that he wanted to be with me in this place forever. And then all of a sudden I heard the audible voice of the Lord, and he said, he has set eternity in the hearts of man. And I had an instantaneous knowing of what that meant. I instantly knew that I was going to be with him forever. And that was the greatest feeling of all, knowing that no matter what I do, I'm always going to be with him for all of eternity, and there's no going back. And I just had this sense of peace and serenity, and I just felt like he was just surrounding me with like this cocoon type thing. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to be here forever, so that's awesome. I'm going to start walking towards the mountain. And as I'm walking towards the mountain, immediately the dream ends. And I wake up instantly, and I'm feeling all these feelings, and I have this intense euphoria greater than any drug that I ever did, that I had experienced in my dream. And I still feel it when I wake up, and I'm wide awake, like jolting, wide awake. I just drank 10 cups of coffee awake, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to go back to sleep. I tried going back to sleep. I couldn't do it. And immediately I ran to write it down. And then I told everybody. And then I told my sister, she's in the program at this time. I was about to go back into the program because I had made that commitment. And she's like, I'm going to be home tomorrow. It's my pass for the weekend. That night she gets there, we go to sleep. In the morning, she wakes me up at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not a morning person. So I was like, come on, what are you doing? And she's like, Austin, you have to wake up. I just read everything that you just told me in Revelation 21. And I was like, no, dude, there's no way. She's like, yes. Like, listen to this. She opens up the book. In Revelation 21, it talks about a transparent glass, the boundaries of heaven, the gates are made of transparent glass. It's made of jasper. The road is made of jasper too, which is also transparent as well. The river of life flows down from the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain is where Jesus is. I knew that. And it's where the temple is, which is the Lord God. Like, he is the temple. And it even says in the chapter, there's no need for sleep. There's no need for night. There's no need to eat and drinking, I believe. I think I would just have to just pull it out and read it to you. But in regards to like the 6 rivers, I believe I saw 6 of the main cities that are laid out. Or not, they're not cities in Revelation 21, but there are 12 gates with these almost like little establishments throughout the kingdom of God, with these little emblems underneath, like I told you about. And written on the emblems are the 12 apostles of the Lamb and also the 12 tribes of Israel. So I saw it. And everything that I had seen in my dream was all laid out in Revelation 21. And it was the greatest experience of my life, and I'll never forget it. And it still impacts me to this day. But yeah, the thing that I can take from all the years of walking with the Lord And something that you might be struggling with, and we all struggle with it to a certain degree, is knowing that you're not just like loved because you have to be loved, because God, it's in God's nature to love, but that he actually does enjoy you. I spent a couple years at the International House of Prayer, and one of the messages that really stood out to me is that God doesn't just love you on the technological level, like technically speaking, like he loves you. That may be true. He does love you because it's in his nature to love, but he actually does enjoy you. He enjoys your personality. He enjoys your quirks. He made you, he knit you together in your mother's womb, specifically to be the way that you are today. Your personality, your weird sense of humor, whether you're an extrovert or you're an introvert, is that the Lord enjoys you. He loves to hear the sound of your voice. He longs to hear your voice. He longs to be with you. He longs to commune with you. It actually says that you were called to fellowship with his son. I believe it's 1 Corinthians 1:9, is that you were called to fellowship with him. It's actually a part of your calling. And that word for fellowship, actually, it's the same kind of language that is used for intimacy with a man and a woman. It's not weird or anything like that. It's that close connection. You're never going to get closer to another person than in that moment. And we were meant to be close to the Lord, experiencing the goodness of the Lord and his enjoyment over you. And I would say that for those of you who are really struggling with just life, if you're on the brink of just wanting to commit suicide or whatever you're dealing with today, maybe you don't feel like anybody loves you, just know that the Lord, he designed you. He knit you together in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that you're not a mistake, that he does enjoy you. And not only does he enjoy you, but he also has a specific plan and purpose for your life, and that you may feel like you're kind of like you're in an utterless stage, but just know that the Lord has a specific plan for your life if you'll just speak to him and commune with him and just spend time with him, that those things will be made clear in due time. And whatever you're dealing with, just know that he enjoys you and that you're accepted. And he's not like your earthly father or your stepfather, whoever raised you, whether you were raised in foster care. Just know that he actually does want you, that you are wanted. And in fact, he wants you, even though like there are billions of us on the earth, like he wants you more than any man or woman could want somebody. He goes far beyond, and he longs to be close to you. And for those of you struggling with addiction, is that I know, and I'm not saying it's like this for everybody, but I will say the vast majority of people that I've met over the years that struggle with addiction is that they're longing to fill that gaping hole, however that was created. I think all of us are created with a hole that's meant to be filled by the Lord, obviously, but I think just growing up and experiencing different traumas, we develop different longings based on what we didn't get as we grew up. And I just want to pray that the Lord will touch you in that area, that he will reveal to you that he is a father to the fatherless, that he wants you. Yeah, Lord, I just thank you for just giving me the opportunity to share my testimony. I thank you, Lord, that you have given me a story, that you're writing a story, and that you involved me in it. And I just pray that you would touch every listener with your presence, with your love, with your satisfaction. In your presence, there's fullness of joy. I just pray for fullness of joy, that they would know the love of the Father that passes knowledge, and that you would give to them a spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of you, that you would speak to them the way that you feel about them, that you would make it evident and known that they are accepted in the beloved, that that you want them, that you long to be with them, that you long to hear their voice, and that every act of obedience, as weak as it may be, even in our weakness, Lord, you see that, and it's not overlooked. Like the way that man overlooks things, Lord, you don't overlook anything. I just pray for just your kindness and your love to go forth in every listener, Lord. Lord, we love you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.